Okay, we're back again. Part 4, I think, on this Nissan Quest. Why do I break these videos down into parts? Because I don't have a tripod, and even if I did, this iPhone doesn't pause. I've said it in other videos, say it again. So I downloaded an app that I thought was gonna work to like pause and be able to record on an iPhone, but they wanted to charge me money, and I'm cheap and I didn't want to pay them. The free version wouldn't do it. So I'm still exploring different free apps that I can do that with. So in the meantime, can't pause, can't record. We'll just do different parts. Anyways, you're welcome. Here's the video. We're back at it. If you followed part 3 and the other parts, you see that we were working on the valve covers. And we actually broke a bolt on the valve cover. It sucked so bad. It was that one in the back right there by the exhaust manifold. That bolt back there we broke. So it's the original bolt. They're all back in it. It's all tightened down. All the valve cover bolts are in there. We can also see the new coils. Look at that. New fancy coil packs. All 3 of them. When you do these, you want to put new coils in them because, like I said, you don't want to have to open this up again for any reason. So you put all new coils in it, all new spark plugs, new valve cover gasket that's not going to leak. All the bolts are new. It's got a little thin coat of RTV. Not too much. In the corners, you'll see it a little bit thicker from where you don't want it to leak out from the corners, and on the back corner, especially because it slants down the engine. So you want that back corner over here and over here to, to have a little bit of extra. But along the sides, you lay RTV down nice and smooth. You can see the same thing on this front valve cover gasket. You got the RTV in the corner a little bit thicker. Around the solenoid up here, a little bit thicker. And see, in that corner a little bit thicker, but real thin over here on the sides. So these are the brand new valve covers. I found the piece of paper from the guy that we bought it from online. Let me see. Okay, so we'll cover up the owner's information, like home address and stuff, and we'll show you who we got this from. I can't see it, so I don't think y'all can. There you go. CNS Auto Parts in South El Monte, California. So they were shipped out December 2nd. Nissan Altima, Maxima, Murano, and Quest, all sharing the 3.5 liter motor. Pretty sure they fit the 350Zs too. But anyways, yeah, so that brand that you're seeing is CNS. They put their own little CNS sticker on it there. I think it's a nice touch. CNS. I really appreciated the fact that they included a PCV valve already threaded into it. That was a real nice gesture on their part. Quality stuff. The hardware they included was very nice too, because again, look how shiny this looks on camera with all the bolts. Nice and shiny bolts, right? That's a win-win. Who doesn't like getting shiny bolts with a new part? Normally they include just the gasket and the valve cover. These guys take it a step above and go ahead and include the bolts with it. So we did the coil packs on both sides, which I already showed you on the back side. And we have them over here. I like to label them the way they came out of the engine. So in each side, inside each box is the coil and the spark plug of the cylinder it was living in. So you have cylinder 1, 3, 5 on the bottom, 2, 4, 6 on the top. This is part number 22448/8J115 from Nissan, original parts. Now, we didn't buy those from Nissan. We got them online, but we made sure that they were an original part. And OEM is always the best way to go when you're shopping for these things. That's not what I wanted to show you here. Is what I wanted to show you. So these spark plugs came in, and they are original Nissan spark plugs too. And there's your part number on them, 22401/5M015. Genuine Nissan spark plug there. NGK. And it has your NGK number. PL, let's see if there's like a glare on it. Can't see it. I can see it. I don't know if y'all can see it. PLFR5A1. No, A. It's the glare from the flash. There you go. R5A/11. So there's your NGK number. There's your Nissan genuine part number. So we did all the spark plugs from them. In here we have the fuel injectors getting ready to go on, brand new. And these were ordered online, coming from George in North Hollywood, California. So the guy that I was really impressed with was the guy that shipped out the valve covers. That's the guy that really impressed me, because it's just, again, like I said, it's a really nice touch to include those bolts. Being that we broke one of them in there, if I had to use the old bolts, I'd be short a bolt, which I'm not. And they were all rusty and cruddy looking, so we got new bolts. Anyways, moving on to the next topic at hand for this video. We have the lower intake manifold removed. Here it is. About to fall off. So this is your lower intake manifold, right? And your fuel injectors sit in here. Doop, doop, doop. The V6. So you got 1, 2, 3 fuel injectors on each side. Then the intake manifold bolts down right here. These are the mounting bolts that hold down the fuel rail to the lower intake, and those are your upper mounting bolts there. The lower mounting bolts are for the intake to the actual lower deck, and these holes would be for your fuel injectors, and this is for the top of the intake to the lower intake. So I had this blocked off so no trash would fall in there while I was working, and I had the intake off. I'm cheap, and this is just some cheap red tape I had bundled up. We're gonna get in here and clean this with some gasoline. We're gonna spray this all down, hit it with a metal brush. The same with that. We're gonna throw a coat of spray paint on it and make it look good, because like my grandfather used to say, if you're gonna work on it, make it look like you worked on it, or don't work on it at all. Your reputation is more valuable than what people are paying you for. Value the reputation, and you'll never have to worry about people wanting to pay you what you ask them. So these are your, I'm gonna use these over here to block off inside the intake runners to keep any trash from accidentally falling in there. So I'll repurpose those there. But I wanted to show you upper intake gasket and then the two lower intake gaskets. And yes, they come in the kit. There's 1, 2 lowers, upper. This is the dividing gasket for the upper intake and throttle body gasket. So it's a full intake gasket set from Felpro. We do like Felpro parts. Our part number MS96454. So the bottom side of this, to show you what it looks like. The bottom side of this looks like that. So all this will get cleaned off. All this will get cleaned off. But then when you go to paint it, what happens is the paint will get here after you cleaned it. So I throw tape over all this. Take a razor blade around the edges of the tape and do the same here. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's worth it. I paint this piece, both bottom and top. You say, Danny, why are you gonna paint the bottom? Nobody's gonna look at it. Because I'm gonna look at it. That's why. And if I'm gonna paint it, I'm gonna paint it right, or I ain't painting it at all. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna tape this up. And I'm gonna put a little tape where the fuel injector O-ring sits in there. So no, I don't want paint inside of this part, right inside here. I don't want paint in there. That's where the fuel injector is gonna sit, and I want that smooth area unpainted, untouched. So I'll put a little piece, shove a little piece of tape in there, shove a little piece of tape in there, so on. You get where I'm going with this, guys. Then we get this bottom piece painted first. That's the first piece we're gonna address because that's the first piece to go back on, and then that'll allow us to put our fuel rail back on. And then we'll work on this piece up here. We'll unbolt it from here. We'll clean the inside. We'll sand it down. We'll paint it. We'll do the same with this over here. I'm not gonna open it up from here because I don't have a gasket for that. I'd like to. I wish it would have came with the gasket so I can get a good cleaning in there, but I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm just gonna clean the outside here. Remove the can from the bracket to paint the bracket. Same color as the intake, so you don't have an ugly bracket on a nice painted intake. This electronic component here, that'll just come off. It won't be painted with it. This I'll just paint right along with it. Again, I don't have the gasket to remove this, so I'm just gonna leave that attached and just paint it. The hoses I'll detach before I paint, stuff like that. That bracket will get painted with it. This will get a little bit of tape over it, just so that the hose doesn't have to go over a fresh painted elbow. Peel the tape off, and then there won't be no paint there, and put the hose over it. It's a vacuum port for the back. The bottom side of the intake will need to be cleaned too. It has like a heat shield for the fuel rail. Look, no, that's actually a EGR pipe. So that gets pretty hot, I guess. Yeah, that's some kind of EGR pipe hole. And so, yeah, that's exactly what that is, an EGR pipe entrance. So that has a heat shield on it. That can get painted, no big deal. So we'll go ahead and clean inside here. Again, tape, razor blade around the edges. Over here, the same thing, tape, razor blade around the edges, tape. There's a little bit of prep work involved in painting that. It's a little bit time consuming, but like I said, it's part of the deal. This thing is looking kind of dingy, and I don't know if I got enough paint to go around in black, but I got a different color. I think I see some gray up there on the shelf. This might get some of that gray just on the fuel rail. The fuel rail is gold, and I have a can of gold sitting up there. So I don't know. It might end up, it's either going to be gray or gold. But here's your fuel pressure regulator. You unbolt it from the bottom, replace it. I'm going to look into how much that cost. If that's pretty affordable, we're replacing it. If it's not, we're ignoring it. We do have 2 of them for each side. So I'm not 100% sure we'll be replacing those, but we definitely do have brand new fuel injectors to go with this. Now this sat in this position. So up front you have cylinder 2, 4, 6. In the back you have cylinder 1, 3, 5. I believe cylinder 3 has a bad fuel injector. It was misfiring. So we're gonna flip it this way. This is number 3 right here. This is number 3. And you can't really tell by looking at these. Can you bench test them? Yeah, you can bench test this. But it's got enough miles to where it just deserves a new set of Bosch OEM fuel injectors. So this one, I'll bench test once I have off, but we went ahead and just for kicks and giggles, just to confirm that I was right. But this is this is definitely getting on new ones, just because I want to end the video saying you got your fuel rail, you install your lower intake manifold, your fuel rail, your upper intake manifold, all that. You no longer have access to the back there. You no longer have access to those 3 coils. You no longer have access to the fuel injectors. You no longer have access to that rear valve cover. You only have access to this front valve cover. So you can change anything in the front valve cover anytime you want. If you didn't want to buy all new coils and all new injectors, my advice to you would be, you know, you're pimping on a budget, right? At least buy everything new for the back. At least buy 3 coils for the back, 3 spark plugs for the back. And, you know, you could always bench test your injector and make sure which one is failing. But once you disturb these things, like let's say I confirm that this is the bad fuel injector, number 3 in the backside, it goes in this position, right? And so let's say it'll install in the engine like this with the lower intake manifold on. That's why it looks weird now, because the lower intake manifold is not there. So to show you a little better, I'll put it on the manifold, so it gives you a better visual. So let's say that see, that'll go like that. Let's say that you bench test this and you realize, yes, it was this, Danny, you're right, that was the fuel injector that was not firing fuel right. The pulse was off, whatever, the injector was on its way out or completely out. That's why that cylinder wasn't having fuel to create spark and explosion. So you were running on 5 cylinders instead of 6. All right, Danny, well, you confirm that's it. Just buy the 1 fuel injector and put it all back together, right? You can do that. I'm not saying you can't. But what I've seen happen is you spend the money on just that. You put it back together, and then this one went, or this one went, or another one went. It's like these things are fine until you tamper with them. Once you've tampered with them, it's like it's never this. You know, they come back and make your life miserable. Like, you know, you should have replaced us too. We're jealous. He's new and we're old and tired. You know, kind of deal. It's funny, but it's really the way it happens. I've seen it happen one too many times. You'll replace the one, and then all of a sudden another couple weeks, couple months at best, another one decides to crap out. I like to replace all of them at the same time, for the other reason being that you don't want to have one injector that's pulsing fuel nice and clean, and then the other ones are all clogged up and old and tired and worn out. You want to have fuel delivery in all cylinders equal, not one cylinder more efficient than other cylinders. That's how you foul out and burn out a valve, damage your head, you know, pre-detonate, other issues. I mean, that's how you really cause havoc on an engine. You want to replace these in a set. Just take my advice on that. When you do these, do them in a set. Now, you see how the bolts on the fuel pressure regulator are from the bottom up, upside down? Don't ask me why Nissan did that, but they did. So they expect you to remove this to replace them. And if we're already in here, These things are called fuel pressure regulators. They regulate fuel pressure. This one will function on these three, and that one will function on the other three. Here it goes. And it's a little cruddy and rusty. So if this is going to get cleaned, if this is going to get painted, why not? These things normally ain't that expensive. We'll look into that. Keep you guys updated on what we end up doing with that. When you look at the bottom of the engine here, because we've pretty much at the bottom belly of the engine here, the only other thing down here is a knock sensor. And this is your knock sensor. It has a little clip you push down on, and then the plug comes out just like that. Now this knock sensor is pretty expensive. Last time I checked on these Nissans, I've seen them as high as $100. It's ridiculous. So we're not gonna replace that guy. He's working fine now. But if you ever had to replace a knock sensor, you'd have to remove all this all over again to get in there. So that's something else to discuss with the owner. It would be horrible to have done all this work and then have a check engine light pop up for a faulty knock sensor. And you say, well, the knock sensor was fine before, no need to replace it. Again, like I said, it was fine until it was disturbed. Once you get in here and start messing with stuff, I don't know what it is. These things, it's like, they just want to come back and be a pain in the butt. But I say if you're in there and you don't want to be back in there anytime soon, replace it. They're like $100 at the auto parts store. You can get them cheaper online if you don't mind waiting for them to arrive. Inside here, this is cylinder number 3 that I'm trying to do the best to show you with this camera. This is the cylinder that was misfiring. And as you can see, it's closed right now. The valves aren't open. Valves are all the way up. There's a little bit of carbon buildup inside the cylinder, but it's pretty clean. And then this is cylinder number 1 next to it. Nothing looks pretty out of normal in there. The same over here, cylinder number 5. Flip this way, show you the inside of cylinder number 6 here. This is the inside of cylinder number 4. And this is the inside of cylinder number 2. Now you say to yourself, why does it look so clean up here and so much buildup down here? Why don't you get oil buildup on the top? Tell you why. Simple. You see the opening up here? See this little opening? That's where the fuel injector comes in to inject fuel, because this is sealed with the lower intake. Blah. And through there, the fuel injector will squirt fuel. And then you have your spark plug. So you got your fuel coming in, you got your spark plug, coil igniting the spark plug down into the cylinder. Spark plug sits right, going right down through the tube, right below the piston on the bottom. And that is where you are getting your spark. So pretty crazy, huh? But that's why you get all the clean here. So this is not like a direct port fuel injection setup where the fuel is going directly into the cylinder. This fuel is going into the cylinder head here. And you could, I don't know how well you can see that there. This camera focus, but you can see the cleanness on top. Keeping that super clean from all that fuel coming in and no fuel touching here. So the question is, how do you clean this without getting junk down in there into the cylinder that could cause a problem? And the answer to that is you don't. It's too risky. Too much crap can get in there. I've seen guys get in here with a rag and they just pull up and out like that if it's thick, and they take a chance on it. I don't like taking a chance on it. This ain't even that bad, really. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm just gonna clean this outer surface here where the gasket will sit up against and paint that thing and put it back on. So I'm not gonna mess with that. It's not dirty enough to wanna worry about cleaning it. This one is probably the dirtiest one. I was looking at it. And what I do look at while I'm in here is the threads on all these. Inside of these threads, I'm inspecting. Do any of those threads look scored up? Are any of them threads looking rough? Do I need to re-thread or anything like that? So I'll blow that out, obviously. Because the last thing you want to do is have gunk inside of it. Like, see, that one has a little bit of debris towards the bottom, that brown stuff there. And so you get in there with a rethreader, rethread it, and blow it out. I like to put a little bit of lube on the bolts. These are the bolts. I'll show you. These are the bolts. So I'll put a very thin coat of lube on this. Not baking it over excessive amount of lube, just a very thin, almost none on there at all, but slightly lubed. And we'll put those back on. Yeah, that's pretty much it for everything in here. The valve covers look so beautiful. And these nice pristine valve covers with a painted lower intake manifold. I'll show you. Sits like that. So imagine that instead of looking all cruddy, all painted. And of course I can't one-hand it out. It's getting stuck on me. There we go. So imagine that guy all nicely painted in there, looking all black and clean. And then this sitting on top of it, instead of looking all dingy like this. Take a little sandpaper, clean all that off, and then put that back looking nice and clean, fuel regulators, all that. And then the intake manifold, obviously looking nice and clean, sitting on top of the engine. And then when somebody pops the hood to this very basic Nissan Quest, they say to themselves, wow, somebody loved on this thing. And then, you know, you wipe down your air filter assembly and all that, make it look all nice and clean, put this all back together, put the wiper assembly back, make that look all nice and clean. You fire it up, all 6 cylinders are injecting fuel the same way with the new injectors. Coils are all new, spark plugs are all new, everything OEM. You know, you got no leaks from the top of the motor down, blah, blah, blah. So you go that route. Anyways, don't want to make the video longer than my usual 30 minutes. I'm about there. Thanks for watching. Keep you updated on the next video I make with the top of this motor installed. Once we get the top of the motor back installed, I'm going to move on to doing the suspension. We're doing all new struts and rear shocks also, and putting this all back together. So we're gonna say buenas noches until the next video. Peace. Bye-bye.